When I think of Batman, there is a specific image that pops into my head right away. It's the image of Batman looking down onto Gotham City from the top of a building in the intro to Batman the Animated Series. I know that most people probably think of Christian Bale's Batman, or maybe even Michael Keaton's Batman, but for me, Batman from Animated Series is not only my favorite Batman, but the Batman that I hear in my head when I'm reading a Batman comic book. I know, a lot of Batmans in those couple sentences, but there's a reason for that. Look, I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. If you're in your 30s like me, more likely than not, Batman the Animated Series played in your home at some point and it had some form of lasting impression on you. But why is that? Why did Batman the Animated Series resonate so much with us? Why is it so good? Cartoons for children at this point were great, but pretty much all of them were comedies with no real substance or stakes to them. They were meant to entertain and that's it. There's nothing wrong with that though, but Batman the Animated Series is a cartoon that took its main character and their world seriously. Yes, there were some weird funny moments for little kids throughout the animated series, and some storylines are dumbed down so our little brothers and sisters could understand what the Joker's plans were. But for the most part, the series creators Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski weren't writing a kids cartoon. They were writing a Batman story for everyone. Nothing proves this more than The Heart of Ice. The Heart of Ice is pretty unanimously seen as the greatest episode of the animated series. Released on September 7th, 1992, Heart of Ice was the 14th episode of the first season of the show. It's also the first episode written by Paul Dini and directed by Bruce Timm. The episode tells the story of Mr. Freeze and his quest to get revenge against the man who killed his wife. At this point though, Mr. Freeze is seen by fans as a kind of a joke villain. His storylines in Batman comics are laughable, and he's never really been taken seriously. But like many villain storylines in the animated series, Bruce Timm and the team rewrote this backstory, giving them real personalities and a real story. Heart of Ice turns Mr. Freeze from a joke into one of the most compelling Batman villains that exists. His revamped origin story of him trying to cryogenically freeze his wife till they could find a cure for her terminal illness, only to be stopped by the CEO of the mega corporation he works for. The CEO, Ferris Boyle, who was also played masterfully by Mark Hamill, then unplugs the cryotube, killing Mr. Freeze's wife. This leads him down a path of revenge against Ferris Boyle. This origin story was so well received, in the comics from this point forward, they retconned Mr. Freeze's origin story to match the story from Heart of Ice. Even the Batman and Robin film from 1997 adopted this origin story for their vision of Mr. Freeze. Heart of Ice ended up going on to even win a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Writing in an Animated Program. 14 episodes into the animated series, and the show found its voice. It truly took a joke character like Mr. Freeze, and in a show for children, turned him around into a character that we all sympathize with, and even wonder, is he really so bad? And it's because the team took Batman and his world seriously. Yes, they had to make weird episodes that were selling toys for kids, but they also still threw in powerful storylines to go with those toys. The look of Batman the Animated Series really placed this kids show in a darker place immediately, and that's because of its distinct visual style. Titled Dark Deco by the producers, the animated series was animated differently than pretty much every other animated movie and show at this point. Most animated projects were hand-drawn on white paper using dark colors. But Radomski wanted the opposite. His drawings of Gotham inspired the overall look of the show, and he had his animators drawing light colors on a black piece of paper, going in the opposite direction as the rest of the industry. But by doing this, Gotham feels dark. It feels depressing. Radomski wanted us to almost fear the city. He was inspired by the dark looks of noir films and took that imagery and used it to influence the look of the costumes, the cars, the buildings. The animated series was a dark noir show. While you have colorful characters like the Joker and Harley Quinn, you also have these incredibly dark looking characters like Scarecrow and Two-Face. When Batman is standing in the shadows stalking our villains, he almost looks like a predator himself, someone we should fear as much as the villains in Gotham fear him. Now, speaking of villains, I know we should talk about the Joker, but in reality, we need to talk about Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn might be the most important character in the animated series, and the reason being is this is where she got her start. Yes, I know you've seen Harley Quinn in tons of media now, but her first appearance was in the 22nd episode of the show titled Joker's Favor. Initially intended to just be in one episode, Harley Quinn is now considered by DC Comics publisher Jim Lee to be the fourth pillar of DC Comics publishing, behind Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Bruce Timm and Paul Dini once again teamed up to create a character that was intended almost as like a walk-on role. Someone who would just crack a joke that the Joker didn't find amusing. But maybe it was her look or her voice, portrayed brilliantly by Arlene Sorkin. But Harley Quinn in her debut episode captured audiences, and the animated series team jumped at including her throughout the show. Inspired completely by Arlene Sorkin's mannerisms, personality, and voice, Harley Quinn became Joker's love interest and equal. And they expanded on that brilliantly, giving her episodes where she went away from the Joker to do her own thing, and even establishing a friendship with Poison Ivy that is extremely important to her character's mythos today. Harley Quinn wasn't just some random villain that was made for the show. Harley Quinn evolved past that, and has become one of the most important characters in Batman's Rogues Gallery.
Gee, Batman, what you gonna do? Kick me around and save your kitten? You've only got time for one. Good call. Help!
Now, all this talk about the animated series, and we haven't really even talked about its main character, Batman. But in reality, there are two main characters in the show, Batman and the Joker. These two have always been the main characters in Batman's media, but no one has portrayed the characters better than Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. At this point in my life, Kevin Conroy, may he rest in peace, is Batman. And Mark Hamill, who as a huge Star Wars guy, will always be Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill is the Joker. Even though tons of actors have taken on both roles and also done amazing jobs in them, Batman and the Joker, to me, are Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Kevin Conroy truly brings Batman to life. His voice when he portrays Bruce Wayne is cocky. It's almost frat boyish. But when the mask is put on, Kevin Conroy plays a completely different character. Because Batman is a completely different person from Bruce Wayne. That voice becomes deeper, it becomes confident, it becomes a real person. Kevin Conroy, in my mind, is the first person to truly capture the fact that Bruce Wayne is a character. It's an act. Batman is the real person. When Batman says what is easily his most iconic line in the series, it truly feels like Conroy is becoming Batman.
You are not my father. I am not a disgrace. I am vengeance. I am the knight. I am Batman.
And in contrast, Mark Hamill is almost doing the opposite of Conroy. Like a true antagonist to our main protagonist, Mark Hamill plays a Joker like a crazy person. The Joker that is obsessed with Batman. A Joker that can't function without Batman existing. He's so lost in his obsession that in a way, Joker isn't even a real being. He's just trying so hard to be the opposite of Batman. And Mark Hamill's voice when he laughs and he taunts Batman, it's in a weird way beautiful because it's perfect. When you see the Joker, that's the exact voice that should come from that character. And again, this is all a kid's show. No one needs to be putting in this level of acting into a show that features an episode where two kids help Batman defeat the Penguin in their mom's basement. Yet, in this weird show, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill defined who the Batman and who the Joker truly are. Batman the Animated Series is so important to Batman as a character that inspired who the Batman is to this day. Obviously, we got shows like Batman Beyond and the Justice League that premiered after due to the success of Batman the Animated Series. And the way the team handled adapting these comic arcs into their show was implemented into these follow-up series. But without Batman the Animated Series, we also don't have Batman the Arkham games. These are praised as being some of the best superhero and Batman games ever made, and guess what? Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill are back as Batman and the Joker. And why is that? Because the Arkham series is essentially the animated series for adults. Because the team that made the Arkham games made the games for us, the people that grew up watching the animated series. It's almost in a way like a continuation of the show. Harley Quinn has gone on to become one of the most important figures in DC Comics. Her backstory being fleshed out, her personality slightly shifting after the New 52 relaunch, and now we have movies like The Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, where Margot Robbie has come in and completely taken this character and made Harley her own leading female. And now, we even have a Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn show on HBO Max titled Harley Quinn, and it's great. But without the animated series not only introducing her to us, but also introducing that friendship, we wouldn't have a show where Harley Quinn gets to not only walk away from the Joker, but also explore her own romantic relationship with someone more her equal in Poison Ivy. But now, 32 years since its premiere, Batman the Animated Series is seen as a large stepping stone for the character. A new generation of kids got to discover him. They got to find their favorite Batman villain. They got to go to the theater and watch Mask of the Phantasm. And they got to listen to Kevin Conroy's voice for 32 years as he portrayed Batman in numerous projects all the way even past his death in 2022. And they even got to see him finally portray Batman in live action on the Batwoman show during the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. If you're like me and you love Batman the Animated Series, let me know what your favorite episode is. Like this video and subscribe for more movie and TV show breakdowns like this.